Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. This is a new song. It's about remembering your inner child. I was a little child once. I was a little child. But I know it's not the same as it used to be. But there's still a little child in you and me. Innocent and free, sounds like fun to me. And there's still a little child in you and me. I was a little child once. I was a little child. I ain't going back where I was before. I know where I'm at, and I'm stepping through that door. Innocent and free, sounds like fun to me. And there's still a little child in you and me. I was a little child.
Welcome everyone to our Fellowship for Today Spiritual Center Sunday service. We come together today as we do every Sunday, but as I was getting ready for this Sunday service, I felt particularly grateful for our community, for this opportunity to come together, to ground ourselves once again, immerse ourselves once again in love, in our spiritual practice. And I'm hoping that all of you are feeling that way too, that we use this opportunity each Sunday to be able to take our loving energy that we cultivate in these Sunday services with us out into the world. So welcome again. And I would like to invite us all now to join together in a brief meditation. So please close your eyes, and it's going to be a very welcome relaxation this afternoon. Let's let our shoulders drop, and let's take 3 deep breaths together. Let's breathe in And breathe out. And breathe in. And breathe out. Breathe in one more time, big. And let that breath out slowly down into our core. And just to rest a moment with our natural breath. And as we breathe and put our attention on our breath, we let all of the stress just wash away. We allow all of our busyness and doing, any stress and worry, any fear, anxiety that we're holding in our bodies, let's just let it wash away right now. I invite you to put your hands on your heart so that we can focus on this sacred space within. And let us put our full attention on the one loving presence, the divine one, the presence that surrounds us and moves through us as us into this world. Feel that connection. In this moment right now, we choose to be grounded in divine love. We choose awareness of our deep connection with God, the God of your heart, our own true selves. In this moment, we choose thoughts and feel the feeling of love, peace, and joy. We choose this focus of intent, this consciousness that fills our hearts, our minds, and our being completely. And we resolve to choose again as often as we need to maintain our conscious connection with divine love, to maintain our light, the light within, the strength of our divine light as it radiates out into the world, into the hearts of all those who need love, loving, healing energy. And together we say, and so it is done. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me in that meditation. I immediately thought of a reading this morning that seems a perfect, again, immersion into the truth of what we really know. And it is A Course in Miracles, Lesson 34. I could see peace instead of this. I could see peace instead of this. It says, peace of mind is clearly an internal matter. It must begin with our own thoughts and then extend outward. It is from your peace of mind that a peaceful perception of the world arises. I could see peace in this situation instead of what I see now. So important to remember as we experience our human reality. And now let's take another moment, if you would join me in a moment of deep, deep gratitude. A gratitude that fills us up from within and radiates outward. A gratitude that reminds us of all the blessings that we share. Our community of the fellowship, so precious to us. We all are grateful for every single person that shares this community with us and for their generous donations and contributions to our loving community. I invite you to join with me as we read the blessing of our tithes and offerings that you'll see on the screen. The light of divine love shines eternally, blessing and multiplying our tithes and offerings. I joyously give, knowing I always have enough to share and to spare. Thank you again for all of your generosity. And now I'd like to introduce the rest of what's happening this afternoon. First, we'll have a perfect song from our wonderful Amber Cordell. And then you'll be meeting our speakers one by one, Richard Lassen, Reverend Sue Quinn, and Reverend Julie Dillon, each talking about different aspects of self-care. And I will join them as well after Julie Dillon is done. And then we'll have another song by Corey Williams, a sing-along song. So let's just really settle in this afternoon and get out a piece of paper and a pencil so that you can take some notes today of all the wonderful suggestions these speakers are bringing to you. I'll see you later in the service.
Did someone hurt you many years ago? Did someone desert you when you needed them the most? And the pain stayed with you everywhere you go. And it's been so long now, but you just can't seem to let it go. Maybe it's time. Maybe it's time. Maybe it's time to tell it you don't need it anymore. Did you lose someone that you love? Did they move far off, or do you picture them above? There's an emptiness inside you, and it's worse when you're alone. And you feel so heavy now, like you're carrying the weight of a stone. Maybe it's time. Maybe it's time. Maybe it's time to tell it you won't carry it anymore. 'Cause we ain't got a long time, there's a lot to do. But first you gotta decide to leave some things behind. Maybe it's time. Maybe it's it's time. Maybe it's time to leave your chains behind. Did you ever love someone so much that you can't explain? When it's with them, it's like thunder keeps rolling through your brain. Maybe you've loved someone before, but this one is not the same. You can feel it in the depths of your soul, but you still can't bring yourself to say it. Maybe it's time. Oh, maybe it's time. Maybe it's time for me to tell you I can't be without you anymore.
Good afternoon. I think for most people, this year has already been a challenge. Political strife, the pandemic, and racial disharmony. I think it's not unusual that most people are feeling a sense of stress. There's some grief, there's anger, and depression. And today, to be a little different than what we've done in the past, I think we're going to talk about those aspects, and we're going to talk about things we can do to help our well-being. In my family, we are still suffering from the last pandemic. My grandmother, back in the early 1900s, she was married to a young man and had 2 children. And within 9 months, both her children and her husband had died from the disease, leaving her pregnant with my father and homeless. Back then, there really wasn't much of mental health counseling that was available. And because of that, she suffered from that quite seriously. I remember my grandmother. She died in 1971, and when I was young, I used to go over to her house and we'd watch professional wrestling together. It's probably explains a lot. But she was an endearing woman, but I was told that she suffered terribly. And so because of that, she had a problem with substances, and that was passed on to my father, who died at the age of 48 from his substance abuse. And so these things are generational, and my brother and I are still dealing with those issues that go back 100 more years ago. In the days back in the early 1900s, emotional health was not well recognized. And so I'm grateful that today that there are things that we can do, that we can look at and seek help. There's no need for us to have to suffer today. And what we're going to talk about is that I'm not trying to convince anybody to do anything. There are avenues of things that we can do, to be well. And there's many aspects to wellness that I think are terribly important. One is mental health, physical health, spiritual health, and emotional health. I think that if you had a good spiritual health, really solid, you could probably be fine with that. But for many of us, got to that point where we're so totally enlightened that the events of the world haven't seeped into our well-being. And so there are aspects that we need to look at. And so I have asked Mary and Sue and Julie to discuss some of these aspects with us today. And because we care about what you're doing, what's going on in your life. Foremost is that whatever it is, you may not be doing all that poorly, but maybe you know someone who is, or there's a family member, and what can we do about that? And foremost is that we're not alone, that we are a community, and there are things we can do And so we'll look forward to having them talk to us today about those aspects. I think this last week has been troubling for most people. And when I started to prepare today's talk, we hadn't experienced what had happened this last Wednesday. And I don't want to skirt around that. I think it's on many people's minds to see what happened to our capital. I think there are very strong feelings. And it's as if the country is being pulled apart. This is not the first time this has happened to us, and I'll offer a bit of a story about what had happened the last time. In 1863, during the American Civil War, similar rhetoric pulled the country apart. And it culminated in the Battle of Gettysburg in 1863. And you're probably thinking, well, what does this have to do with spirituality? But the point is this, is that after the carnage of the three-day battle that left 50,000 casualties, it's interesting that America has this unique way of looking at things. And in 1913, 50 years later, the government decided to have a reunion of all the Civil War veterans to come to Gettysburg days during the exact same 3 days of the battle. 57,000 showed up. They were not allowed to bring their wives or family members, just themselves. And they pitched tents and told stories. Third day, at exactly the same hour, it was the last day of the battle in 1863, and desperation was clearly evident. And the Confederacy launched an attack on the Union lines, led by 3 generals. Most famous was called Pickett, and it was called his charge, of which 11,000 men went out across the field for a mile and a half, and all along the way they were being hit by cannon fire. Only half of the people that went out came back. Now, as bad as that is, this wasn't the only time this happened in the war, nor would it be the last. But in the reunion, they decided that they would reenact that charge. Now, all the people that were there are now old men, and they're in their 70s and 80s. And I have a picture of, this is a picture of the old men going across the field. And for a mile and a half, and they're with crutches, and they're helping each other. And as they approached the Union line, a moan came out from the boys in blue. And they couldn't restrain themselves. They hopped across the stone wall and embraced their former enemy. You know, and then I've got another picture that's kind of a picture of what they did. And my thought is that, you know, for these men, they understood the consequences of war, and that they recognized the brotherhood. It was no longer about issues of who was right and who was wrong. It was the commonality. It was compassion. Pema Chodron wrote this: compassion is not a relationship between the healer and the wounded. It is a relationship between equals. Only when we know our own darkness can we be present with the darkness of others. Compassion becomes real when we recognize our shared humanity. Words have power. They can illuminate or they can incite. I think of Martin Luther King and I Have a Dream speech, and the inspiration that came from that. Our future, the words that we choose will be the foundation for our future. And I think that in the days to come, we're probably looking at more darkness. It will be a hard time but we will get through this. We have a shared humanity. You know, the people that we disagree with are not our enemies. If we are to heal this, we must find words that support our commonality. Thank you.
Welcome to today's service. As I've been reflecting on what Richard, Mary, Julie, and I talked about for today, I've had so many different thoughts. Julie's going to bring about the physical well-being. Richard's talked about the community, historical events. Mary's going to bring about spiritual well-being. During the work week, I'm a psychologist, and I've had the opportunity to witness so much pain in people's lives. On the other end, I've also had the opportunity to see people recover and to move to places of peace that may or may not have been thought possible at the start of the work together. As we talk about this mental health part, historically, I think we know that mental health concerns have been filled with stigma, shame, and with secrecy. Let's move into the light. Mental health events happen to anyone and to everyone at some point in their life. They could be triggered by any number of things, whether it is a simple or complex trauma, such as being in a war. It could be you become divorced, there's a change in your life. There could be a financial issue that came up. Another avenue is through grief in its after effects. We know that grief really brings you down, takes you to your knees, and it's painful. It's painful to grieve. It's also wonderful to come out on the other side of grief and know that you can feel joy again. And that's what we're looking at, is looking at the joy of life, of every day, even though there are difficult times. Natural disasters and man-made disasters could bring about a mental health event. Financial issues. Also, over the course of the past 100 years, so much has been done with organic brain chemistry and problems related, deficits in the chemicals that go through your brain and make you think, operate. This is what you can do. If you are feeling poorly, it's hard for you to get up in the morning, you're feeling helpless, hapless, and hopeless, seek out mental health services. It's okay. We're trained to listen actively. And what's important for you to know is that I've wanted to be a therapist since I was in 9th grade. And that's huge. And it was a calling for me. And most of my coworkers have had the same calling as well. The other part that you could do is seek out help from your primary care physician or from psychiatry, because it's possible that there is a deficit within the chemicals that are created in your brain. Think about what brings you joy. What are the things that bring you back to skipping across your lawn when you're 6, going to a drive-in when you're 17, romping through the woods in the fall in your 30s, talking with people wherever you are in your life. Think about what brings you joy. It could be outside. Go outside in the snow, go outside in the rain, go outside in the sun. You might see a deer, you might see a rabbit, just so many different pieces to bring you back to the natural world. Music. Music is so evocative of feelings. I'm sure you can think about a time when music just kind of helped you get through something. Return to that place, whatever that music is for you. Cooking. During this pandemic, we've shared so many recipes, being at home, being creative. Check that out. We have to eat to live, so that's a fabulous idea. Create. Create community. Create art. Create literature. There's so many different ways that you can exercise that right side of your brain. What you need to know is that you are truly loved unconditionally. Be gentle with yourself. You change your thoughts and you can change your life.
Hello. Today I'll be talking about the physical aspects of our well-being and how we move, what we eat, and our sleep. And by paying attention to these areas, the benefits that we'll be able to receive. And we know that it's so important to move. We feel better. We have more energy. It helps our mood, and physiologically it's going to help with our immune system. But it is also important to pay attention to where you're starting from. It's so easy to get involved with comparing ourselves. Maybe it's our old self. It's someone else or someone that we see on social media. So, truly just honor where you're at and know that you are at the right time to start. And I'm going to emphasize, keep it simple. It's a strategy that truly works for me. When there is so much information, it can be overwhelming. So just truly keep it simple and truly don't compare yourself. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, I like to start any practice, any kind of movement practice, any kind of eating with pausing and doing some breath work. Just inhaling through your nose, nice and slow, deep breaths, exhaling through your mouth or nose. And there's lots of literature on how to do it. Keep it simple. Again, if you have a practice that works for you with the breathing, stick with that. Okay. And also, in addition to the breath work, perhaps setting an intention, and that might look different every day. And some days you might just want a little extra energy, just a means to get out of bed, because there's so much going on. And as Richard mentioned, as Sue mentioned, and Mary, there's so much going on. And that intention, again, more energy. It could be feeling like you need to have a little more strength or flexibility or just more calm in your body. Perhaps you're just feeling so agitated, so anxious. Set that intention. And then I'm going to suggest find a practice that you enjoy and it's something that you want to do. For me, I love going outside. That helps with my mood tremendously. I know Reverend Sue has a wonderful nature walk. It could be walking with a neighbor, or any walking around the block. It truly lifts our mood, getting outside. And if there is bad weather, put on one of those videos. There's lots on YouTube, lots of good choices. I love Qigong. That always helps me with more energy. There's lots of free, real beginning type of classes. So if that's new, they have so many good choices. So you're just starting out, it will be perfect for you to try. And another favorite is just putting on the music. Sue had mentioned, Reverend Sue, about music, and it truly, literally moves you. And when we move, again, we feel better. So put on the music. Perhaps it's dancing, even if it's sitting in your chair. Move your arms, and you'll just feel how much better that you can, that you're able to feel throughout your day. And just that energy, they call it the chi, that moves through you. So be creative. And you can add some singing there too. Keeping it simple. We're going to keep that guide. All movement is good movement. Be gentle with yourself. And I like putting a reminder, maybe writing it right into your schedule to do the movement, because there are going to be days when, again, it's going to be hard to get out of bed. If you can see that reminder, and you just have to think back, oh gosh, how it felt that day before when you had finished your exercise, finished your practice of yoga, of walking outside. So that's what's going to keep you coming back, and noticing that, how you felt. This awareness will inspire you on those tougher days when we have that lower mood, we're more lethargic. So it's just going to be that extra poke. Also, asking friends to just check in, say, I'm working on this new program. Can you maybe just text me or email or phone, and having an accountability partner or just a buddy to check in, I think is so helpful. I've done that with a somatic dance class I took in the spring, and there were people from all over the country actually that took the course, and 3 of us from different states are redoing this Zoom class, and it makes such a difference that I know we're going to be Zooming once a week. So we replay it, I get to move and do something I enjoy, and honestly, it helps me to give me that nudge when I might not have quite that drive. And now I'm going to switch on to how we nourish our bodies. And again, I like that keep it simple principle. Let's start with water. Generally, water, they say to try to get up to half your body weight. And yes, that is a lot of water. So if you're someone who's just starting out, take the baby steps, do what you can. Any increase will be good, and you'll notice how you'll start to feel. I notice if I have a headache coming on, as soon as that's my reminder, going to drink some more water. Herbal teas, anything that's not caffeinated, trying to stay away as much as we can from that sugary, the drinks, really, because that's going to deplete our energy. When it comes to food, again, I'm just going to briefly mention, we're sticking with our keep it simple plan. Let's just try to eat real food, and just start adding more of the vegetables to our plates, whole grains, healthy proteins. We're going to watch our sugar intake, and I think most importantly is slowing down when we eat. My daughter mentioned, and I just love this, she said, we usually don't chew our food when we eat quickly, and she said to remember your stomach doesn't have teeth. And that just, thinking of that, it's like, ooh, that automatically slows me down. And I have friends that set a table, and if you eat alone, doing those little special treats for yourself is really helpful. Light a candle, perhaps, and then actually saying grace, saying a blessing, a prayer before you eat, thanking everyone that was involved with that, the food that we get to enjoy. That's that wonderful pause, and helps us to eat more mindfully as well. Sleep. We know the value of that sleep and how that helps to restore us so we can be our best. I would suggest setting up a practice, setting the something like a meditation. I like listening to a guided meditation. At night, it could be a relaxing Epsom salt bath for you. I suggest turning off that technology. It could be lavender. I know chamomile tea is a favorite. I did a wonderful Qigong facial, which helps with the stress in your face, and I found that was really helpful. Big one is turning off the devices about 2 hours before bed. And I know that's not easy, but just some ideas to try. Okay. Thanks.
All right, it's Corey with you at the fellowship here again, and we're going to be doing a couple of songs out of the Sing Your Song book. I hope that they're some of your favorite ones and that you can really get into it and sing along with us. This is Spirit Am I by Max Rains. As it says in the bottom of the page, God placed in the mind the call to joy. This call is so strong that the ego always dissolves at its sound. Teaching 197.
Hello, everyone. As we've been talking about this service, the importance of self-care, I especially want to thank Richard Lassen for proposing this whole idea that Reverend Sue Quinn and Reverend Julie Dillon and myself and he come together as a group to talk about this really important topic. And I'm happy to be talking to you this afternoon about spiritual well-being. Our spiritual paths are really paths of remembering. And as Richard mentioned in his segment, the one thing that is really important to being able to navigate this human worldly experience is a very solid spiritual foundation. And so I want to just take a moment and ask all of us to really appreciate the fellowship for today and our wonderful spiritual community. We have provided 37 years of teachings and workshops and classes and studies and community fellowship around this very fundamental need for a spiritual foundation. And it's so important to remember that we know what happens when we join our energy with, or even put our attention on hate and aggression and negativity. We know that it is important to join our energy collectively with joy and peace and love. It lifts up our collective energy into higher frequencies of these really high level feeling frequencies of love, peace, and joy. And when we can do that together, we help not only our own well-being, but the well-being of our collective consciousness on this planet. After the events of this week that all of the prior speakers have touched on, I really feel that it's important that we remember who we really are. And so many of our talks and all of our teachings revolve around this. We are spiritual beings having a human experience on this planet. Our souls, our higher selves, our who we truly are, knows this always and holds the space for us, holds that higher level of energy for us, just waiting for us to awaken to it. Not necessarily in a flash of lightning, but in a moment by moment awakening. And this involves our intentional focus and our mental discipline and creating spiritual practices for ourselves that really resonate and connect with us, that we can maintain on a regular basis. I just want to talk about a few that I think are really beneficial in our lives. And one especially has really helped me over the years. A Course in Miracles lesson 33 says, there's another way of looking at the world. There is another way of seeing what we're seeing. And I've had wonderful results with when I remind myself to say this, help me see this another way. Please help me see this another way. When I'm looking around me and my human ego mind is seeing anything that pulls my energy down, negativity, the chaos of this external world, my emotions and feelings that are reactions to that. If I can stop for a moment and say, please help me see this another way. Every single time I have employed this practice, I have had immediate results. The result of just this immediate washing away of this tension and resistance to an open-heartedness of welcoming in love and peace. So that's one thing that I would recommend. Our Fellowship School of Ministry is now going to be starting a new term, and we're going to be focusing on science of mind, especially around affirmative prayer. Prayer is so important in our lives, and how we pray is so important. Science of mind teaches us that through affirmative prayer, we are affirming what we want and not focusing on what we don't want. We are recognizing the fact that we are one, inseparable with divine love. And the affirmation of what we want, knowing that it is done, that's when we get results. The results don't come from pleading to an external God out there. All we're doing when we do that is focusing our minds on the negativity, on what we don't want. We're going to have prayer partners this term, and I recommend that for all of you. Find somebody in your life that you could come together with at least once a week and pray together. Use maybe half an hour of your time on the phone once a week, or do it as often as it feels good to relate to each other, yourself, and this peaceful, loving presence of love through prayer. Also meditation, of course, and we have talked about all of these things many, many times over at the fellowship. But through meditation, through developing a regular meditation practice, we use that time, those moments, whether it's a minute or 20 minutes, whatever you can manage, we release any resistance that we're holding on to, any pushing against, anything. It applies to everything, the state of the world, our country, our physical state, our mental state, our ego minds. We are just using that time to rest in open consciousness, where our emotions are neutralized and just dissipate. That is so healing and so relaxing and so comforting. So I just want to end with a reminder that, as we sang with Corey earlier, Spirit are we, Spirit am I. And if you have experienced even one moment of peace during this service, through the music, through any one of the messages, then you know that it's possible to shift your attitude, to shift your whole feeling, being to peace and love. So we just want to find ways of maintaining and sustaining this connection, remembering that we are divine beings, powerful forces of love, powerful, creative, divine entities on this planet, bringing ourselves back to that moment by moment by moment. With the help from others around us are extensions of God's outreach as well. And when we come together, we know that we're not alone. We can face anything together in our wonderful spiritual community. Thank you. So many thank yous are in order today, from our music, from Leroy Harvey, Amber Cordell, and Corey Williams. Thank you for bringing our service all together with this wonderful sharing of music and perfect lyrics for today. Thank you to our speakers, Richard Lassen, Reverend Sue Quinn, and Reverend Julie Dillon, for giving us so many wonderful points of information and suggestions about how we can move forward this year, taking really, really good care of ourselves, really attending to ourselves. And we thank them from our hearts, because we know that each one of them cares so deeply about our well-being. It is who they are. They are really grounded in their areas of expertise and want us to benefit from the wonderful suggestions that they've provided us today. Thank you all for being here this afternoon. I have been so grateful to join in this service today, so grateful to be with you, and I want to tell all of you once again that I love you so much, and want you to find the love here at the fellowship, find the meaning, and wherever you are on your spiritual path, we can start moving in a direction that brings us in connection with our higher selves, with our loving God. So again, thank you to all of you. And now we're going to join together in our peace circle, another perfect ending for this service after the events of this week. We come together in this synergistic energy of love and peace together, joining our energy together. We can visualize this huge virtual peace circle that we are coming to know as the fellowship for today. And we'll sing our peace song. then we'll close with our blessing that will carry us through the week, our blessing of protection. It's a wonderful thing to take with us. So thank you so much for being here this afternoon, and I'll see you next Sunday.